Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Boom! And welcome to another issue of Did You Know? Brought to you by Mallard Bay. Check out Land of Enchantment trophy hunts at mallardbay.com. I am Jeff Stanfield with the world famous Andy Shaver.
Gotta admit, didn't know we were doing this today. I'm a little unprepared, but I think I can scramble and find a couple things.
Okay, well,
I've got some things I got to do a little bit of digging on them.
On your next one?
Yeah.
Okay. Mine is about an American movie classic.
Okay.
Smokey and the Bandit.
Mm-hmm.
Smokey and the Bandit. If you're not familiar with Smokey and the Bandit, it's a great movie to watch with a teenager or yourself. It's a guy's movie. It's hilarious. A lot of car wrecking and stuff. It stars Burt Reynolds, Sally Field, Jackie Gleason, and Jerry Reed. And most people know about it. Anybody older does. It was the second most popular movie in 1977 behind Star Wars.
I thought you said Jaws.
I was wrong on that.
Star Wars.
It was Star Wars that came out that year. It was made for $4.3 million.
Mm-hmm.
Is what it was made for. They originally gave them $5 million, and they said no, you can have $4.3 million. It grossed $126 million and made for $4 million. So it's one of the second highest grossing movie of 77. Star Wars had more, and the worldwide gross estimate was over $300 million. Burt Reynolds said it's the funniest movie he'd ever made. It was a really cool deal. Here's some interesting facts about Smokey and the Bandit. It was based on a real Coors Banquet beer problem. Now, a lot of people, if you haven't seen the movie, Burt Reynolds and Jerry Reed drive from Atlanta to Texarkana, pick up a truckload of Coors beer, and take it back to Atlanta for these two guys named Big Enos and Little Enos Burdett. So anyways, they do that for $80,000, which is equivalent to $420,000 today is what it was based on. They had 28 hours to make the trip. Cops, wrecks, it's a great movie. So anyways, it was based on a real Coors Banquet beer problem because Coors beer is not pasteurized.
Okay.
So it has to stay refrigerated. So back when I was a kid, and I do remember this, you could not buy Coors but in like 7 states. You could get Coors in Colorado, New Mexico, Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas, maybe Wyoming. And I don't know if they did Utah because they don't drink much in Utah. But that is how Coors was done. So it had to be somewhere. Now Coors has refrigerated trucks, so They take them everywhere. But it's all still made at the same place in Golden, Colorado. Burt Reynolds' friends asked him not to make the movie. Hal Needham is a stuntman. He's a famous stuntman, was in tons of stuff. He wrote the movie. He lived in Burt's pool house in Florida for 12 years, lived back there, and he wrote the movie. The original movie was going to have Jerry Reed play the bandit.
Mm-hmm.
Burt read the script. His friends told him, please don't do it, don't do it. He was really popular at the time. He did it for $1 million. They moved Jerry Reed to play Snowman. Sally Field, they did not want her in the movie because they saw she was ugly. So they did not want to have her in there. Didn't think she was attractive enough to be in there. She read it. She wanted to be in it. Burt Reynolds said, no, we need to keep her in there. I think her character would be good. When they made this movie, if you've seen it, they wreck all these cars.
Right.
Hal Needham saw the ad for the 1976 Trans Am come out, and he goes, that's the movie I want to do in this movie I wrote. That's the car I want to have in it. So he went to Pontiac, which is General Motors, and he said, hey, I'd like to use your car for that, and then I need Bonnevilles for Jackie Gleason, who was the sheriff. They gave him 4 Trans Ams, and they gave him 2 police cars, which they wrecked the shit out of them. When they got done to it, they had no car. The bandit car wasn't running. They were stealing parts off all 4 of them to make one. The cop car was in such disarray. There's a couple of scenes in it where it's got a black fender on it instead of a gold fender because that's all they could get.
Right.
When they made the second Smokey and the Bandit #2 in 1980, 3 years later, Needham asked for 10 Trans Ams. They got 10 Trans Ams, and they gave him 55 police cars to wreck. The original budget was $5.3 million. The day before the movie was supposed to start filming in Atlanta, Universal sent a guy out there and said, no, you can only have $4.3 million to make the movie instead of 5.3, and they were paying Burt. So they had to make $3.3 million last, and they had to make the movie with it. They did not. Sheriff Buford T. Justice was played by Jackie Gleason. They wanted someone a little crazier than this guy named Richard Boone, so they got Gleason to do it. Gleason ad-libbed a lot in the movie. They did not have the police name that they wanted, but Reynolds' father lived at Riviera Beach, Florida, and their police chief, their name was Buford T. Justice type. And one of the things that he said all the time was, he say, "some bitch." So they told Jackie Gleason that, and that's where he got the "some of a bitch" from. Jackie Gleason ad-libbed most of the part, just like in they have one scene where he's in a barbecue joint and he gets a Diablo burger. Asks for a Diablo burger, calls the lady a nice lady, walks out the door. He took the toilet paper and stuck it coming out of his pants leg and walked all the way to the car with it with the toilet paper. Lady comes up and gets the toilet paper from him. They did not share much screen time. 2 stars of a movie, and very seldom were they in the same shots because it was always different things that they were doing. Eastbound and Down, the song by Jerry Reed, which is probably the greatest song that he's ever had, is by far the biggest selling one he ever had. He wrote that song overnight. 10 o'clock at night, he was at the motel room, got to the motel room, sat down, wrote the song, showed it to Hal Needham the other day, said, "I can change whatever you want." Hal Needham heard it and said, "Don't you change. I'll choke the shit out of you if you ever change anything on it." Great movie. Alfred Hitchcock was a big fan of the movie. The Diablo sandwich that they talked about in there comes out of a sandwich in Pittsburgh, Texas, that has Pittsburgh hot links and a Louisiana-style hot sauce on the deal. And that was where the Diablo sandwich came from.
Sounds good.
I don't know about that.
I'd eat it.
Would you? I don't want hot sauce with whatever it's called.
Give it to me.
The critics hated the movie.
Really?
It will never go nowhere. It wasn't nothing. It was a redneck good country music, a country show. It's a great time. That's basically the whole story on that. They filmed the movie. Most of it was filmed in Arkansas and in Georgia. They did film some of it in California, but most of it was shot around there. It was probably the first wreck-em-up car movie that was really a big popular hit. The Pontiac Trans Am. I won a black 77 Pontiac Trans Am. That's my dream car to have. Had a lot of famous people in it. It was a good movie, good times. Just Did You Know? That was all I had. The Did You Know about Smokey the Bandit, which is one of my favorite movies. Me and Michelle happened to watch it the other night. It came on about 10:30 at night. Next thing I know, it was almost 12:30 and we were finally going to bed. Good show.
That's it? That's all you got? Just the one?
That's it. I don't have anything else. I didn't know I was supposed to do 2 today.
Well, I've got 3.
Okay, well,
and
good.
I've come up with 3 on the fly. The original Ponzi scheme.
Social Security?
Nope. That's the latest.
That's the biggest one ever.
Charles Ponzi was born in Italy in 1882. He immigrated to the United States in the 1900s, where he embarked on a series of dubious ventures before devising his fraudulent scheme. In the late 1910s, Ponzi promised investors 50% profit within 45 days or 100% profit if you waited 90 days, exploiting the idea of arbitrage involving international postal reply coupons. When a person received a letter from overseas, they would also receive an IRC, the international reply coupon, that they could redeem to send a reply. Ponzi zeroed in on the idea of buying IRCs in one country, exchanging them in a different country where the value was higher. He lured investors with the promise of doubling their money within a few months. However, Ponzi's scheme was unsustainable and based on a flawed premise. Instead of investing in postal reply coupons, he used new investors' money to pay back the earlier investors' money, creating a facade of profitability. This structure relied solely on the influx of new investments, Ponzi scheme. The scheme unraveled in 1920 when investigative journalists and financial authorities began questioning the legitimacy of the Ponzi operation. As the flow of new investors dwindled, Ponzi could no longer meet the escalating demand for returns. Eventually, his fraudulent scheme collapsed, causing the devastating loss for thousands of investors. Ponzi was convicted on federal and state charges of fraud and scammed investors out of an estimated $7 million in the 20s. So that's a lot of money. The Telegraph, however, some sources estimate investors' loss as high as $20 million. So that was the original Ponzi scheme. It had to do with the mail.
So he took $7 million off people in the 20s.
It's another one says it could be as high as 20.
Well, even if he got $3 million in the 20s, that's a shitload of money. And it was hard to get someone arrested back then because a guy like that,
right?
If you just wanted to live in infamy,
yeah, It was just like that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio,
Catch Me If You Can.
just bouncing back and forth and taking advantage of the delay in time that it takes to kind of catch everything up. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any time easier to get away with a crime than in those days.
Yeah, because there's no internet.
Or you're gonna,
I mean, he could
get on a boat and fucking, you'll never see me again.
Get the cash and end up in a small town in Montana, and nobody would ever, or wherever you wanted to go. You know, you couldn't run in certain circles because someone's going to see you, some other wealthy person. But back then it would be easy to go somewhere and just blend in and be part of a community.
Right.
That's interesting.
So that is the original Ponzi scheme. My second one, football. Christian Watson has missed 11 games during his first 2 seasons, including 8 this last season, because of a pulled hamstring in his right leg.
Mm-hmm.
The NFL is taking a very, they want to know what's going on with hamstrings right now. So, before the 2023 season, Watson admitted to spending tens of thousands of his own money, tens of thousands of dollars of his own money to try to figure out what's going on. Why am I pulling hamstrings? So he's done everything from massages, needling, physical therapy, countless types of machines. But after last season with the same injury, the team realized they need to try something different. So Watson and Eric Stokes went to the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health. And what they found out, kind of crazy. Apparently, Watson has a 20% asymmetry in the hamstring muscles between his right and left leg. His left leg, he's got more hamstring in his left leg by 20% than in his right leg. So his right leg is having to overcompensate because his left leg's so much more powerful. And that's the leg that he keeps that's the right hamstring that he keeps jacking up. So Watson has now began work trying to close the 20% gap, and where he currently has only an 8 to 10% difference in strength. And while the perfect symmetry is nearly impossible, he says his goal to shrink the gap to around 6%. So if Watson stays healthy this year, you can bet the NFL dumped $4 million into this project just for, I guess, this Watson and Eric Stokes to see what's going on. But if he stays healthy, it's going to be interesting to see if the NFL puts more money into research like this.
There's some other player that's had chronic hamstring issues.
I think Julio Jones did, but I mean, he's old. But yeah, I mean,
he was one of them, and there was somebody else.
It's becoming a problem.
I was thinking like Randy Moss or somebody too.
Right.
But there's been a couple of players that have had chronic hamstring problems,
yep.
and that's an interesting deal right there.
So they're gonna see if this gets anywhere. Okay, my last one: government spending. Oh, the government. All right, so the U.S. national debt is $34 trillion. That means every child born in America today will have $82,590 share of publicly held federal debt upon becoming an adult. Now, if you break those numbers down, that is $10 billion we spend per day, $416 million per hour, $6.9 million per minute, and $115,000 per second the government is spending. Now, what does all that mean? Well, 1 million seconds ago, it was May 8th. 1 billion seconds ago, it was 1993. 1 trillion seconds ago, it was 30,000 BC. That's the scale of how fucked we are. I know this is supposed to be a little bit more of a PC show, but that's the scale. Sorry for the F-bomb. We have $34 trillion in debt. 1 trillion seconds ago was 30,000 BC. So that's the difference between 1 million, 1 billion, and 1 trillion.
Pretty interesting.
Saddle up, boys and girls. It's going to get lean.
It's not going to get lean. It's just they're just going to keep printing money and doing something.
Yeah, but somebody's going to call their note.
Who?
Somebody will.
No, they'll just make more money and pay for it.
It doesn't work that way, Jeff.
It does too. That's the way our government works. I'm not agreeing with it, but that's the way they do things. If the federal government done stuff the way that the regular businesses, you wouldn't have these problems. I mean, it's ridiculous, but it's the way they do things.
$34 trillion.
All right. Thank y'all for listening to us. Did you know? Brought to you by Mallard Bay. Thank you very much. Go over and check out Mallard Bay. Land of Enchantment Outfitters in New Mexico, mallardbay.com. Thank you. God bless y'all. Have a great week.